Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge or, in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you, and we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Well, hello and welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to start this episode off with a funny story again. I did that a couple episodes ago, and I thought it was kind of fun. And it's fun for me to think of these funny stories. Well, really, it's not thinking of them. It's recalling all the weird things that happened in my family in the recent history. And at the time of this recording, I'm in the week of Halloween. Thank God we survived that, right? Oh my gosh. It was a little tough having, Monday be such a day. Okay. So the title of the story is 5-year-olds and 15-year-olds. My 15-year-old son invited, at my encouragement, a bunch of his buddies over to our house for pizza and, trick-or-treating. And our neighborhood happens to be quite involved with Halloween and really goes all out. Like there's a haunted house down the street, which I refuse to go in. Anyhow, my daughter, Cambria, was like really into going into it, which I talked her out of. Anyhow, that's not the story today. So there's a bunch of 15-year-olds. At this time, it was like after trick-or-treating. They're in the backyard. We have a little bit of a fire pit that they were all huddled around and doing their teenagery thing. And meanwhile, I was bringing Cambria upstairs to my master bedroom where that outlooks this fire area to get her bath and to, get her ready for bed. And I was not in the room at the time. I hear about this all afterwards. And let me give you a little bit of backstory, actually. So one of the things that my 5-year-old Cambria just gets a real kick out of is exposing herself to her brothers because they hate it and they freak out and they're like, Cambria, don't do that. And she's just giggling her way through it. And and so if you have any parenting advice on how to deal with this, I'd love to hear it because so far what we're doing is not working. Anyhow, so she thinks this is hilarious. And I'm sure you're kind of seeing where this is going. Our master window became her little like performance area. And she was like dancing her little naked body out in front of the window where the 15-year-olds could clearly see it. And so my poor son was mentioning it last night at dinner. He's like, my friends are scarred. And, he's smiling while he's saying this. That's why it's funny, but it's not that funny. I mean, it has the humor, but it also I really do need to figure that part out. Anyhow, that's what it's like when you have a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old all living in the same house. Okay, well, that's a fun story to kick off this episode. Today, we're talking about relationships, again, with the theme of November. And specifically, we're going to look at how to have better relationships, especially with relationships that are hard for you. So we're going to talk about accepting and loving people as they are and taking full responsibility for the relationships you are having. It sounds much easier than it is. So we're going to be building off of the conversation we had back in episode 113. So if you haven't listened to that one, it's more focused on relationship with your child, but it definitely applies to any relationship that you have with anybody. So go ahead and go back and listen to that just to kind of give you a base to launch off of for this episode. I want to put a couple notes as we get started. First, I'm going to be using the term husband to describe the partner or spouse. And I realize that's not everybody's situation. So I just want to have you know that you're included here too, even though I'm using the word husband. And definitely make sure that you don't check out if you're not married or if your spouse is other than a husband, then you are welcome here too. And all of this applies because what I'm sharing today applies to any relationship, spouse or not. Alrighty, let's do a little bit of a review from episode 113. So we talked about how in relationships, we always have a set of beliefs on how people should be and how they should not be, what they should do and what they should not do. And we aren't generally aware that we have these thoughts. That's why I call them unspoken agreements. So they can also be described as like your rule book or your guideline for how people should be. And this is really important because this part we have the opportunity to just take responsibility for, to just identify and accept that these are our thoughts and our creations, and that not everybody is going to know them, and not everybody is going to agree with them. And so this will kind of apply a little bit more, and it'll make more sense down the line, but it's really important. So let me give you some examples of these unspoken agreements, how they might apply to, I'm going to look at two different kinds of relationships today. We're going to look at the husband relationship, and we're also going to look at what I can call like hard relationships. So these are going to be the family members that just really rub you the wrong way. These are going to be the people inside of the medical facilities that just don't seem to be picking up what we're putting down in terms of what we want, and they feel like they're in the way. And really any relationship that you would describe as a hard relationship. Okay, so these might be some of the unspoken agreements that you have for your husband. Your husband should plan dates. He should take initiative. He should see the things you do and do them so you don't have to. That's my personal favorite one for my rule book. Note, husband does not follow this. Okay, husbands should do equal part housework. Okay, so I'm not saying any of these are good or bad. I'm just observing them as some things that some of us might think about our husbands on how they should be, do, or act. Other areas, let's look at the hard relationships. And when a relationship is hard for you, it's going to be because of this. It's going to be because you think somebody should be a way they are not. And when I say be, I mean think, do, or feel. So when somebody doesn't think the same way you do, that might feel hard. I mean, think about somebody that has very different thoughts or beliefs on the political spectrum, right? Sometimes those people are very hard for you to be with because your brain does not understand or doesn't agree clearly with how they are being. Or think about somebody that's doing something very differently than you do. Or somebody that's feeling very differently than you do in certain situations, right? Those relationships can often feel very hard for us for a variety of reasons. So let's think about how this plays out in the special needs mom world. When a doctor doesn't think, do, or feel the way that you think they should, you're likely going to feel feelings. You might be disappointed. You might be enraged. You might be a variety of things. So when a doctor delivers news to you and doesn't have emotion, maybe they're just kind of non-emote, that might really upset you because your expectation for them, your unspoken agreement, they should be filled with the same emotion that you might have when delivering this news. Now, again, I'm not saying any of this is wrong or right. I'm just hopefully helping us understand what's happening for you so that you can take full responsibility for it. That's kind of the goal here. Okay. That's the first foundational piece here, is taking full responsibility. Okay. A hard relationship might be with your child's school. Your child's school may not agree with what you think should or needs to happen with your child. And this does not mean, I want to make sure this is clear. This does not mean, even if somebody doesn't agree, this doesn't mean that you have to stop believing what you believe. You just have to stop fighting with reality that they should think something different than they are. Because most of the time, we're not going to win that war. Most of the time, not always. But it can just feel so like you're hitting your head against the wall when we approach it this way. Or we could look at siblings. When siblings talk about themselves, or specifically, they never ask about your child. Ooh, that would get you, right? Because your thought is very likely they should care about your child by asking about them. Or maybe your parents say things like, maybe you should try this. Or have you tried spanking that child? He's out of control. And I'm using these examples as things people do and say that likely don't feel good for you. They likely contribute you to having a very hard or not a great relationship with that person. And so, again, all of this is just to point to the opportunity that we have to really identify, become aware of, and really just see why we feel the way that we do. So an easy way to uncover what your unspoken agreements are might be to kind of list all the things that you're annoyed with or disappointed by, or that you think someone should do and they are not, and just write them down, own them for yourself, look at them and just recognize and own that these are your unspoken agreements. This is the guidebook that you're expecting somebody to follow. And that is that. That's all. Okay. Now let's look at the second part here. Accepting people as they are. Now, some of you are going to hear this and you're going to be like, oh, easy. I accept people. I'm very accepting. Well, I'm probably talking about a little deeper level of acceptance. We constantly are expecting people to be who we want them to be. This happens so often in a marriage relationship, right? We think somebody should be sensitive. We think they should be soft. We think, actually, this happened yesterday. I had just a day where just everything went wrong. It was like tech nightmare, and I was feeling angry and like annoyed at the end of the day. And husband had to work late, and so we had talked for like the first time that day. I think it's 7:00 after I had stopped by to pick up burritos, and he said, "How's your day?" I was like, "Oh, it was a really rough day." I don't know exactly what I said, and he kind of just moved on, like he didn't acknowledge it. And I was like, "Wait, I'm sorry. You're supposed to say, 'I'm so sorry, honey. That sounds awful.'" And so he tried to say something again. I'm like, no. He didn't get it right again. Just say, "I'm so sorry." And then he did. And then we moved on. And it was in humor. I was actually, It was a funny way of me actually just getting him to acknowledge what I wanted. And it was just to have it be acknowledged that it was a crappy day. I obviously thought he should just feel, oh, wow, I'm so sorry, babe. And he didn't necessarily feel that way. He was like moving on. Okay. So we expect these people to be a certain way. And as we know this, you can think about this. People never follow these unspoken agreements 100%. Like we will always be let down if we stay the same as we are today. And so I want to, for this piece, I want to really look at acceptance, at pure acceptance. And I think a lot of us, well, you're going to see as I describe what acceptance is and what acceptance is not. Well, I think because we expect acceptance to be something else, we actually aren't actually accepting. Okay, let me get to the definition. Okay, acceptance is letting a fact be a fact. Letting the fact that your husband does not take the trash out just be, my husband does not take the trash out. Here's the piece that's tricky. Without judgment. So acceptance is letting a fact be a fact without judgment. Acceptance is not trying to change a fact. It's acknowledging what is true in the present moment, again, without judgment. So acceptance is not liking or disliking the fact or the circumstance, the thing that happened or maybe will happen. Acceptance is not thinking something is good or bad. That's judgment or it's a thought. Okay? That would be what is approval, right? I think actually a lot of us mistake acceptance for approval. We think that by accepting that your child will never walk, that you're approving, that you're saying that this is okay. Where all acceptance is just letting that be true without trying to change it. Okay? Let me give you an example about how this acceptance piece, and specifically accepting people as they are, plays out. So I'm going to use my relationship with my mother-in-law. For years, I've been married, I think it's coming up on 19 years, which when I say that, I'm like, ooh, that means I'm getting old. That's okay. For years, I thought my mother-in-law should ask about my life, my job, and she just should interview me all the time. And I held this against her because she never did. And so I would leave from visiting her and have all sorts of complaints. And I would feel disappointed. And I would feel like she didn't care about me. And I would be kind of like totally pissed. You should have heard me. It was awful. And then I decided I was just going to accept her. And obviously this took some work, right? I was just going to accept that she did not ask about my job. My mother-in-law is not a person who asks about my job. And that's okay. And when I just accept that, that is not who she is, then for one, in my situation, I can take full responsibility, which is part 3. We'll get to that. And if I want to, I can share with her about my job. If I want to be known in that way, then I can take responsibility and share that. It's not her job to want to know. Ooh, that's hard to hear. I know. And I can also just have her talk about what she wants to talk and listen to it and decide if I'm interested or not. Decide if I want to engage in that conversation or not. Okay. And side note here, Janet, if you're listening, I love you. And I'm so glad I let go of my expectations so I could see your wonderful gifts and how you love our family in your unique way. Okay. Let's move on to part 3. It's being 100% responsible for the relationship you want to have. Now, I meant to mention it early on in this episode, but I forgot, so I'm going to mention it now. And it's that parts of this conversation may not be super easy to hear. You might already be a little bit like, no, she's wrong. She doesn't have my husband. She doesn't have my situation. And that's okay. But the thing I want you to consider is that if you stay thinking the same way, nothing will change. They say, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And so even though we as people try to change other people, or we try to convince them of who they should be by telling them and inspiring them and begging them, we know that doesn't usually work. Or it might work for a little while and then it wears off again, right? That's probably familiar for a lot of you. It's familiar for me. Okay, so when we take responsibility for our own needs, this is what opens the possibility of us actually having, one, our needs met, and two, freeing people to be the people that they want to be in relationships so that we can love them well. We can love them unconditionally, right? Because when we're loving somebody because they're doing what we want them to do, that's easy, right? Okay, let's consider, and I want to also acknowledge this is very high gradient. I'm bringing it on today for y'all, and take what you will. Okay, I wanted to give you guys a little example of what this looks like. Okay, I'll use myself as an example again. So this last year, we had some tax filing issues, as in we missed the deadline. And so what happened was we were trying to transfer some funds to be able to move some things around so that everything would work out. And my husband is the one in our family that does all the taxes, and he figures everything out, and it's great. And for some reason, I was transferring money from one account to the other, thinking I was doing the thing that I needed to do to make it all work out. And I did the opposite. I transferred the money the wrong way so that when the funds were attempted to be drawn, they were not there. And therefore we missed the deadline, which had a big financial hit. Now, it is so easy for me to think, so easy. But the reason we had this problem, and I'm still maybe there a little bit, the reason we had this problem is because my husband waited till the last minute to do the taxes and the transfer, whatever. And it's really a lot harder for me to recognize, no, actually the reason this didn't work was because I made a mistake. Yeah, maybe there's an opportunity for him to do the taxes earlier, but I can't control that. I mean, I could maybe force him to sit down and be like, do the taxes. But I think we all know that won't work. Right. So you see my little story. And if someone was going to ask me, and this happens all the time in coaching, I ask this question. Okay, if you could assign, if there is a scale that you can assign responsibility, who would you put to blame or at fault for this thing that happened? And in this little scenario, I would put myself at 20% and him at 80%. You might be like, Kara, you're actually 80%, but that doesn't matter. So, it's I'm thinking that mostly it's his fault. Okay. And so whatever numbers we give, sometimes we're going to be even we're going to take full responsibility. We're going to be it's 50% my fault and 50% his. And when we say that, we think we're being really responsible, we're owning it. And unfortunately, that's not exactly going to get you the relationship that you want. Here's the thing. When we stay on this 50-50 balance, it actually puts us in a position to always blame the other person for something. So the opportunity is to shift to a whole new model, a whole new scale. We're throwing out the other one, we're getting a new one, and it's 100% and 100%. And the 100%, the first one, is you, and you taking on a being of 100% responsible for the relationships you have in your experience. And you let the other person be 100% responsible for themselves, meaning You don't go try to be 20% responsible for them too by micromanaging, trying to control, and telling them how they should be. So this is not going to be easy. We're so well practiced. I mean, you even see my example. That was from this year. And I'm still, probably not fully responsible with it. Really owning that I made the mistake. And the other thing I want to caution you against is going down to like 99.1%, to even having a sliver of not taking full responsibility will expose you to staying stuck, to staying where you are, to fully accepting who your husband or who this person is that you're trying to have a relationship with. And so this piece of becoming fully responsible is critical, and it can be confronting. So I want to give you a very simple tool to help you step out of that victimhood and into responsibility, even when you're resistant, even when you're like, Kara, I don't buy it. I'm not there yet. It's totally okay. That's why this exercise is so valuable. So it's called the 3-letter series. And not surprisingly, it's 3 letters. And this is effective for any and all relationships. This could be effective for a relationship with somebody who has passed, or a relationship with someone that you're never going to speak with again. So the first of the 3 letters is coming from a place of victim. This is the easiest one to write, honestly. This is the one where you get to really let that person have it, the person or institution or whatever the thing is, and just tell them really how you think. You get to bring out all the expletives. You get to bring out all the reasons, all the evidence, all the blame. This is great because we do not have to be the evolved, mature version of ourselves. We actually just get to be the sloppy, messy, mean, whatever the thing is. That's this letter. And it's really important that you get it all out. So generally what you can do is write it, take a breath, and see if there's anything else. It's like emptying out yourself of all the things you've been holding on to with this person or situation. And I probably don't need to mention it, but these letters are for yourself and your viewing eyes only. They're never to be sent to anybody else. So you can burn them afterwards. When I do this exercise, I just do it in my journal. And so the second letter is a letter coming from responsibility. This is where you get to kind of say, I see that, like I'll use my example. I see that I wasn't paying close enough attention and I did the wrong thing. I see that I lean on you for this and I don't take any ownership of our taxes and I just expect you to do everything. And I don't even say thank you. So that's obviously using my example, but this is really just looking on your side of the street, looking at who you were being or not being that had it go this way. Okay. If this letter is really hard for you to write, I want you to go back to letter 1 and get more out. Okay. So this letter will be very difficult to write if you haven't allowed the upset of the upset. Okay. So the last letter is a letter of acknowledgement. It's a letter where you're actually relating to the person or the institution at the highest and most lovely version of their being. So let's use your husband. It's like acknowledging him for how you saw him the day that you married him. Like that person. That's his essence. That's actually who you love. It's who you're attracted to. And then you have all this other stuff in between now and then. And so the acknowledgement is actually you reconnecting to this version and then relating to them as this version of them. And you will be, I don't want to say you'll be surprised. I think you'll be in awe of how powerful this exercise is. And then when you see that person the next time you talk to that person, you will have a completely different experience. Why? You're not holding all this stuff over them anymore. You're relating to them as the highest version of themselves as whole and capable. And when you relate to somebody that way, I don't want to say it shifts how they show up, but I think you'll notice it makes a huge difference for how things go. Okay, so that's the letter. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I am just a couple clicks away, so I welcome anything. And I want to also put this in here. So this tool is very effective, and I know all of you could take that on really well, really effectively. And, from this vantage point of taking full responsibility, there's some next steps, right? There's some next steps of like, okay, I can take full responsibility. And really that looks like saying, well, I need this and I don't have it from that person. So what do I do then? How do I do that, Kara? And you're right. There are definitely next steps to this, right? Because in accepting your husband for who he is and who he is not, it might leave you with some of your needs lingering out there in he's not doing it, so nobody is land. And that's not cool. And so the next conversation for you is really to look at, okay, I have this need. So what's next? How do I feel this need? And one, this is going to take so much pressure off of your partner to be required to meet your every demand and need. And it's going to make you feel so much better because you will stop hitting yourself up against a brick wall trying to change something that is not changing. So if you want to explore this deeper, I wanted to mention that Pathway to Peace, the coaching program that you probably heard about in the beginning of this episode, is a really good place to do this. So this is where you get to actually have interaction. I give you a lot more tools and resources to be able to really effectively identify the unspoken agreements I mentioned earlier. And it would be the program to help you really move forward. Now, this program probably is not a good fit for you if you're stuck thinking that he's still the problem and that if he doesn't change, then you can't have what you want. Then you're probably not ready for Pathway to Peace. And that's okay. Keep listening, keep coming back, and you might decide that now is the time. Okay. I trust that this episode is going to hit you at the right time as we're seeing all the people and all the families, and we're in this season of holiday, right? Holiday season where generally our emotions run a little bit higher, right? We're more sensitive. And so small things become big things. And that's why I wanted to record this episode for you today, is really to give you some good tools to go into these relationships and have a different experience. All right. We'll see you on the next episode, which is going to be workshop week. And so I will very much look forward to seeing you then. I actually just realized I forgot to say that in the intro, which is okay. We're going to be okay with that. Workshop week is coming up next week, and you're going to get to have an episode every day. And I'm going to be launching into what I'm calling the Unchallenge, which is going to be running from the Monday after Thanksgiving to December 30th. And so I welcome you there. Clearly, the name indicates that the idea here is we're not going to be working harder. We are going to be actually making our life easy during this intense season. All right, we'll see you on the next episode. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.